The journey back to the capital was a blur of chains and shadows, my wrists bound in rune iron that burned whenever I tried to move, my body dragged in a wagon meant for beasts, not brides. The soldiers who surrounded me did not speak, their eyes sliding away whenever mine caught theirs, as though they feared the mark still glowing faintly beneath the shackles. My kingdom had once called me daughter, heir, hope, and now they paraded me as a prize stolen back from the jaws of the demon general. When we passed through the city gates, the people lined the streets, their mouths twisted with hatred, their hands flinging rotten food and stones, each impact sharp against my skin. Witch, they spat. Monster. Traitor. The words clung heavier than the shackles, each one a brand hotter than fire. I kept my head high, though inside I was splintering, rage and grief twining until I could not tell them apart. The palace loomed ahead, its spires white as bone, its banner snapping in the wind. Once it had been my home. Now it looked like a tomb. They dragged me into the throne room, the place where I had once played at my father's feet, where I had dreamed of ruling with wisdom and grace. Now priests in golden robes lined the walls, their faces hidden by hoods, their voices murmuring chants that made the air hum with chains. And on the dais sat my father, his crown gleaming, his eyes colder than the stone beneath his feet. He did not rise when he saw me, did not call my name. He only lifted his hand, and the soldiers forced me to kneel. The rune iron bit into my skin until blood dripped to the marble, and still he stared down with the dispassionate gaze of a king who had already buried me. So, he said at last, his voice ringing through the chamber. The curse has not yet devoured you. How disappointing. My heart clenched, but before I could speak, the crystal's whispers rose in my mind, louder than the priest's chants, louder than the murmurs of the court. Break or be broken, it hissed, the fire inside me clawing against the shackles. I bit back a gasp, and when my father leaned forward, I saw something flicker in his eyes, not triumph, not relief, but fear. He was afraid of me. Of what he had made me. The chains rattled as I lifted my head, the mark on my wrist burning even through the iron, and I swore in that moment that I would not break before him. If he wanted a witch, a monster, a curse-born bride, then that was exactly what I would become. And when Kale came, and I knew he would, I would show them all what kind of ruin they had raised from the ashes. They stripped me of the black silks I had worn in the demon fortress and dressed me in white again, the same color I had worn when they dragged me to Kale as a sacrifice. The gown was heavy with pearls and embroidery, but I knew its purpose was not honor, it was humiliation, a shroud meant to mock me as they paraded me before the court. My wrists remained shackled in rune iron, my ankles chained, the clink of metal echoing with every step as guards hauled me through the corridors of the palace. Whispers swirled around me, courtiers pressing against marble walls to watch, their eyes glittering with cruel fascination. Some crossed themselves as though warding off evil, others sneered as if my suffering was a spectacle for their delight. But when the mark on my wrist flared faintly beneath the chains, their faces paled, and I tasted fear in the air. The throne room doors opened again, and they dragged me forward until I knelt once more at my father's feet. He studied me in silence, his hand resting lazily on the arm of the throne, but I saw the tightness in his jaw, the way his fingers clenched when the mark glowed brighter. You should not exist, he said finally, his voice low, carrying enough venom to still the chamber. I buried you, and still you crawl back. Do you know what that makes you? I lifted my head despite the chains biting into my flesh, my voice steady though rage burned in my chest. It makes me stronger than you. Gasps rippled through the hall, priests muttering prayers, guards shifting uneasily. My father's eyes narrowed, the mask of cold kingliness cracking just enough for me to glimpse the man beneath, the coward who had bound Kale, who had cursed generations, who had turned his own daughter into an offering. You speak with the curse's tongue, he spat. Not your own. I leaned forward, the fire in me pulsing so hot the chains smoked against my skin. Perhaps. But if the curse speaks through me, then hear it well. Your throne will not hold. Your lies will not last. And when the fire comes, you will burn first. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the distant boom of war drums outside the walls. My father's gaze flicked toward the sound, and though his face remained carved of stone, I saw the shadow of dread flicker there. Cale was coming. And every chain in the world would not be enough to keep him from me. They locked me in the tower where I had once played as a child, a gilded prison with high windows and iron-bound doors, its walls etched with runes meant to dampen the curse burning inside me. Guards patrolled the stairwell, priests chanted below, and yet still the mark on my wrist throbbed like a heartbeat, answering to Cale across the distance. At night I pressed my forehead to the glass and felt him out there, his fury, his fire, the storm of chains dragging him ever forward. He was close, and the thought steadied me more than food or water ever could. My kingdom thought they had tamed me, but every insult, every restraint, only fanned the flames. Servants crept in to bring me meals, their hands trembling as though I might curse them with a glance. Once, one dared whisper, "Why do you not end them all, my lady?" Her eyes shone with a mixture of awe and terror, and when she fled, I realized the truth. The people did not see me as daughter of the crown anymore. They saw me as something older, something powerful. The throne was already splintering beneath the weight of their fear. Days blurred together, broken only by the priests who came to bleed me, collecting vials of my cursed blood to weave new chains. Each cup burned, but with every drop they stole I felt the curse coil tighter inside me, whispering not of surrender but of vengeance. And one night, when the drums outside the walls thundered louder than ever, I knew Cale had reached the city. The tower windows shook with the force of his army's roar, the sky alight with fire, and for the first time in my life I saw terror on the faces of my father's guards. I pressed my shackled hands against the stone, the mark on my wrist blazing, and I whispered into the night, knowing he would hear me. "Come." The word trembled with longing and fury alike, and far beyond the walls I felt him answer, his chains surging with the promise of ruin. The city held with chaos. From my tower window I saw the streets drowned in fire, Cale's cursed army tearing through battalions of men who once saluted my father's banner. Chains of light lashed from their bodies, dragging them forward into slaughter, and at their head Cale burned brighter than the dawn itself, his runes flaring so fiercely the very air seemed to bend around him. My people screamed, fled, prayed, but no god answered, only the roar of demons who had been bound too long. Inside the tower, the priests crowded my chamber, their chants rising in frantic rhythm, trying to smother the curse as it surged through me. The rune-iron shackles seared my skin, glowing red with strain, and I bit back a cry as the mark on my wrist flared hot enough to blind. Cale's fury pulsed through me like a second heartbeat, every swing of his blade echoing in my veins. The priests pressed harder, knives flashing to spill more of my blood, but the curse twisted their spells back on them. Chains erupted from the floor, snaring their limbs, crushing bone with the sound of snapping twigs. Their screams filled the tower, and I laughed through clenched teeth, not because it was joyous but because for the first time their fear was mine to wield. The doors shattered in a rain of splinters, guards flooding in with spears. One lunged for me, but the fire burst from my hands before I could even think, engulfing him in flame that left nothing but ash on the wind. The others faltered, terror plain in their eyes, and in that moment I saw the truth, my father's throne was already falling. It only needed the final push. I turned back to the window, blood dripping from my wrists, the fire in me clawing for release. Cale raised his head, his golden eyes locking on mine across the chaos, and for a single breathless heartbeat the battlefield stilled. The curse thrummed between us, a chain of fire and flesh, and I knew he would not stop until the tower fell, until I was in his arms again. And God's help me, I no longer wanted him to stop. The tower shook as Cale's army surged through the palace gates, their roars echoing like thunder against stone walls. From my window I watched the courtyard drown in fire, soldiers scattering as chains dragged demons forward in an unrelenting tide. Inside, my guards scrambled, their fear a stench sharper than blood, some fleeing outright while others pressed their spears to my throat as if killing me would somehow end the storm outside. The mark on my wrist burned hotter than the iron binding it, the curse whispering with venomous clarity, "Break them. Break everything." My father's voice bellowed from the throne room below, cold and commanding, demanding his soldiers hold the line, demanding his priests chant louder. But his orders cracked against the roar of the curse like waves breaking on rock. I felt Kale draw nearer, every heartbeat pulling at mine, every strike of his sword tearing through my veins. And then the tower doors exploded inward, shards of wood scattering as Kale strode through the wreckage, his sword dripping molten light, his runes blazing so brightly he seemed carved of fire. The guards lunged, but he cut them down before their screams could rise, their bodies crumbling under the weight of his fury. His gaze found mine at last, golden and unyielding, and the world narrowed to nothing but that tether between us. He crossed the room in 3 strides, his hands seizing the chains at my wrists. The rune iron flared, fighting him, but Kale snarled, his voice a guttural command that shook the stone. "You will not have her." With a final wrench, the shackles shattered, iron fragments scattering like sparks, the fire in my veins roaring free. I collapsed against him, my body trembling, the mark on my wrist blazing in perfect rhythm with the runes across his chest. For one breathless instant I felt the curse in full, the weight of centuries, the agony of endless war, the raw power of unbroken chains, and I did not flinch. I embraced it. Kale's arm tightened around me, his heat overwhelming, his breath ragged against my hair. "It will demand more," he whispered, voice hoarse, trembling. "It will demand everything." I lifted my head, fire crackling at my fingertips, the throne room doors shaking with the force of the curse's call. "Then let it take everything," I said. "So long as it takes them first." The throne room was a cathedral of lies, its marble floor gleaming with spilled blood as Kale and I strode through the shattered doors. The priests fell back at the sight of us, their chants faltering, their gilded masks trembling in the torchlight. My father stood at the dais, crown gleaming, his face carved from stone, though I saw the flicker of fear in his eyes when the mark on my wrist blazed like a brand. The court gathered at the edges of the hall, nobles who had once bowed to me now pressing against the walls like rats trapped in a burning house. Kale's sword dripped fire as he advanced, each step heavy with the curse's fury, his presence filling the chamber until it seemed too small to contain him. My father raised his hand, his voice sharp. "Hold." The soldiers froze, spears trembling in their grip, eyes darting between king and demon. My father's gaze locked on me, cold and venomous. "Daughter," he said, the word twisted as though it tasted bitter on his tongue. "You bring ruin to your own bloodline. Do you not see? You are its puppet. The curse wears your face." My laugh cut through the chamber, sharp and cruel, startling even me. "And who put the mask on, father? Who bled innocents dry to bind an army, who carved runes into flesh and chained men to war? Was it the curse? Or was it you?" Gasps rippled through the court, priests paling as whispers spread like wildfire. My father's jaw clenched, the mask of composure cracking, but he sneered, desperate. "You will kill us all." Fire surged in my chest, the curse thrumming in my veins, chains writhing in the air around me like living serpents. I stepped closer, my voice steady and merciless. "No, father. You already did." The mark on my wrist blazed so brightly it cast shadows across the hall, and the crystal's voice hissed through the stones themselves. "Break or be broken." Kale's hand brushed mine, steadying, grounding, his golden eyes fierce as they locked on my father. For a moment, the curse, the chains, the fire, it all bent to us, waiting for the command. And for the first time I felt no fear of it. Only hunger. The hall erupted in chaos as the curse bared its teeth. Chains tore from the marble floor, lashing through the air with a scream of metal, striking down priests and guards alike. Flames coiled from my hands without command, racing across the banners of my kingdom, devouring silk and stone. Nobles fled shrieking, their jewels clattering to the ground, their polished shoes slipping in blood. My father stood rooted on the dais, his crown crooked, his eyes wide with the horror of a man watching his own lies unravel before him. Kale advanced with a predator's grace, his sword blazing as though it drank from the fire I released, each strike cutting through chains of spellwork woven by the priests. The mark on my wrist burned brighter, the curse whispering in my ears, its voice both cruel and intoxicating, "Take the throne. Take the crown. Take everything." My knees trembled, but I stood tall, the heat of Kale at my side anchoring me as the world bent around us. This kingdom was built on blood, I said, my voice carrying over the panic. On chains. On lies. And tonight it will drown in its own sins. My father's face twisted, fury cracking through fear. Ungrateful child, he spat. I gave you life. I lifted my hand, fire curling up my arm like a serpent ready to strike. And I will take it back. Kale's golden eyes met mine, a silent vow passing between us, and together we unleashed the curse. The throne itself split down the center, marble shattering beneath the weight of fire and fury, the crown toppling from my father's head as the hall quaked. The nobles wailed, the priests burned, and still the curse pressed harder, demanding more, hungering not just for a kingdom but for the world beyond. Kale seized my hand, his grip scorching, his voice a low growl against the roar. Do not let it consume you, he said, fierce and raw. If it takes you, I will end it, even if it means ending you. But his eyes betrayed him, because I knew he could no more kill me than sever the chains binding us. And God's help us both, I no longer wanted him to. The throne room lay in ruin, the air thick with smoke and the stench of blood. Priests burned on the marble floor, their chants silenced forever, while nobles cowered in corners, their silks singed, their jewels forgotten in the rubble. My father staggered against the shattered throne, crown at his feet, his face pale, his breath ragged. The mark on my wrist pulsed like a second heart, chains of fire writhing around me, demanding I finish what I had begun. Kale stood beside me, his sword dripping molten light, his runes blazing so hot they cast the shadows of his horns against the ruined walls. The curse hissed louder, its voice no longer a whisper but a command, take his life. Seal your power. Become what you were meant to be. My father's gaze fixed on me, fury sparking through fear. Look at you, he snarled, voice cracking. You think you've won? You are nothing but a vessel. The curse owns you. You will burn just as I foresaw. I raised my hand, fire curling around my fingers, the chains screaming for blood. My father's body trembled, but his eyes held mine, defiant to the end. Kale's hand caught my wrist, his grip searing, his voice low and fierce. If you kill him with its fire, it will take you. You will never come back. The chamber seemed to tilt, the curse roaring louder, promising me strength beyond kings, beyond gods. I saw visions of myself crowned in flame, the world kneeling, Kale at my side not as general but as shadow bound to my fire. The hunger nearly devoured me. But when I looked at Kale, at his face, raw with desperation, his golden eyes fixed not on the fire but on me, I faltered. He was not afraid of the curse. He was afraid of losing me. My father sneered, spitting blood. Do it, girl. Kill me. Show them the monster you've become. The chains writhed, the fire burned, the curse screamed. But for the first time, I realized the choice was mine. Not the crystals. Not my father's. Mine. And as Kale's hand tightened, trembling against mine, the fire inside me shifted, bending not to hunger but to will. To love. I lowered my hand, and the curse held in fury. But my father's eyes widened in terror, for in sparing him, I had shown the court, the demons, the curse itself that I was no puppet. I was the one holding the chains. The silence that followed was worse than the chaos. My hand still burned with fire, my wrist seared by the mark, but I had not struck. The nobles clung to the walls, their whispers sharp as blades, priests smoldered in heaps of ash, and my father stared at me with something I had never seen in his eyes before, not authority, not cruelty, but dread. The crown lay shattered at his feet, a relic of power that no longer belonged to him. Slowly, I stepped forward, each chain that writhed around me bowing as if in acknowledgement. Kale followed, his presence a storm at my back, his golden eyes burning brighter than the torches that flickered against the smoke-stained walls. My father's lips curled in a sneer, though his voice shook. You think restraint makes you stronger? You are already lost. That thing inside you will strip away everything you are, until nothing is left but hunger. I knelt, not because he commanded me but because I chose to, my face level with his, my fire casting his features in cruel light. No, father, I said, my voice low and unyielding. It will strip away everything you built. And I will let it. Gasps rippled through the court as the chains surged, slamming into the dais, shattering marble, splintering the throne itself into rubble. The crown rolled across the floor, its gold tarnished, its jewels cracked. My father flinched, stumbling back into the arms of terrified guards who no longer believed he could save them. Cale's hand brushed my shoulder, steadying me, his grip scorching and grounding all at once. The curse bends to you, he murmured, voice rough with awe and warning. But it will keep testing you, keep demanding more. If you falter once, his words trailed, heavy with the vow that had haunted us since the beginning. If I faltered, he would end me. Yet when I turned, meeting his gaze, I saw the truth etched in the tremor of his jaw. He could not kill me. Not anymore. The curse knew it. I knew it. And God's help him, Cale knew it too. My father collapsed to his knees, his voice breaking into a hoarse plea. Spare me, daughter. The word was no longer venom, but desperation. For the first time, he saw me not as pawn or traitor. He saw me as queen. And the curse hissed its final temptation in my ear, end him, and the world will kneel. The throne room reeked of blood and smoke, the marble floor cracked beneath the weight of chains that writhed like living things. My father knelt before me, crownless, trembling, his voice raw with desperation as he begged for mercy. The nobles cowered in silence, the priests lay dead in heaps of ash, and the court that had once laughed at my humiliation now stared in awe and terror. The mark on my wrist blazed so bright it burned through flesh, a star carved into my skin, and the curse whispered in my veins, its voice sharper than any blade, end him. Claim it all. Become mine. I raised my hand, fire spiraling around my fingers, chains arching like serpents ready to strike. My father's eyes widened, his breath shuddering. Please, he whispered, the word fractured, stripped of all pride. For a heartbeat the hall held its breath, waiting for me to burn him, to drown the kingdom in ruin. But Cale's hand caught mine. His grip was iron, searing, trembling with restraint. His golden eyes locked onto mine, fierce and desperate. If you kill him with its fire, you'll be lost, he rasped. It will own you forever. The curse screamed in fury, tugging at my veins, demanding blood. My father's fear fed it, the court's terror worshipped it, and every chain in the hall pulled tighter around me. I could feel myself slipping, my pulse hammering with hunger, with rage, with power too vast to contain. Then Cale pressed closer, his forehead touching mine, his breath ragged, his voice breaking. You are not the curse. You are you. And God's help me, if you fall, I fall with you. The fire inside me wavered, the chains trembling, the choice poised on the edge of a knife. Slowly, deliberately, I lowered my hand. The flames flickered, the chains slackened, and the curse shrieked in my skull, a howl of denial. But I did not let it break me. I bent it. Claimed it. My father collapsed, sobbing, the crown forgotten at his feet. The court watched in stunned silence as Cale and I stood together in the ruin of the throne, bound not by chains alone but by something far more dangerous. The kingdom had fallen. The throne was shattered. And though the curse still burned in my veins, it no longer owned me. I owned it. And with Cale at my side, the world itself would learn what that meant.